Jane Kilcher finally spoke out about Atz Lee, and what she said has shocked friends and family. The truth is, finally coming out after years of keeping it inside and carrying the weight of it quietly. There was more going on behind the scenes, but Jane didn't tell the whole story. Everyone has a different view now because of what she said. Wait a minute, the silence is over, and the truth is not what we thought it would be. Before the cameras, the show, and the fans, there was a beautiful love story. Jane and Atz Lee were the only ones there. Two people who grew up in the same small area of Alaska but have lived very different lives have later been brought back together. It was Alaska where Jane was from. It was said that she was smart, worked hard, and never gave up when faced with a task. She worked as a nurse before she moved to the country. She was used to long days and busy times, but nothing had ever prepared her for the life she would choose. A life in Alaska's cold and wild parts, far from town. Atz Lee was a dressmaker. For many years, his family had lived off the land. His dad, Atz Sr., came from a long line of homesteaders who lived by the rules of survival. He learned to hunt, fish, build, and live in the woods as a child. Even though his life wasn't always smooth, it made him a person who could handle the hardest parts of Alaska. In Homer, Alaska, the Kilcher family had been living off the land for many generations, long before the show Alaskan Frontier started. Alaska-based shows on the Discovery Channel, such as Gold Rush and Deadliest Catch, are well known. They wanted real stories about families living on the border. They were different because they were a real family and lived off the land. That was the start of the show. Alaskan. It was on Discovery from December 2011 to November 2022. The Last Frontier is a reality TV show. It told the story of the Kilcher family's lives as they continued to homestead on more than 600 acres outside of Homer, Alaska. The Kilcher family is descended from the Swiss explorer Jane Kilcher. It has been on for 11 years and has more than 170 episodes. People watch the Kilchers hunt, farm, build shelters, store food, and get ready for the harsh Alaska winters, all while not having modern water or heating. Otto, Atz, Jane, and Atz Lee, who play characters with strong ties to the land, show how generations can live off of their own resources and use traditional skills. Unlike some reality shows that are scripted, this one tries to be more real by showing daily problems and how to survive in harsh environments. Jane and Atz knew each other when they were kids. They both grew up in the same town and neighborhood, but they went their different ways for a while. Life went on, and each of them had their own relationships, problems, and roots. They met again after many years, this time older, different, and with a little more weight on their shoulders. Something was different this time. They knew what each other meant. Jane once said that it felt right, and that he was the one. Atz Lee had been traveling for a while and came back to the homestead. Jane, who had worked as a nurse and professional fisherwoman, joined him full-time on the show after they got married. There was no desire for fame. They wanted to share their way of life with many people instead, which they liked. Atz Lee already had a son named Etienne from a past relationship, and Jane had a daughter named Piper. It wasn't just about being husband and wife when they got married. It was about starting a family, which is never easy. But with hard work, patience, and a lot of love, they made it work like any other family would. It wasn't like any other house. They lived without power lines or phones. They built their own power sources and ate what they caught. You had to plan ahead just to stay warm in the winter there. Every day was work and barely getting by. Most days, the fact that they chose to do it all together kept them going. When Alaska, The Last Frontier, first aired on TV in 2011, Atz Lee, one of the key characters, became a part of it right away. Jane stayed out of sight at first. People quickly became aware of her. She was real, funny, and strong. Nothing was fake about what she said. She just said what she thought. Jane was just being herself. That's what made her unique. She faced risk without fear, fished in water that was below freezing, and dragged gear through the snow. She did all of this with a sharp sense of humor. She quickly became one of the show's most adored characters. She kept things in balance. Jane brought life to the room where Atz Lee was quiet and serious. She was honest and open, and she made their hard life look not only possible, but also easy. A lot of people didn't see how well she looked out for their kids. Jane was sure of one thing from the start. Their kids were not going to be on the show. There was a reason why Etienne and Piper were rarely shown on CCTV. Jane knew what it was like to have people look at her, judge her, and pick her apart online. She wanted her kids to grow up in peace and safety, away from people who might be nosy. That alone showed what a great mom she was. While she worked hard on the farm, shot for the show, and helped the family make ends meet, she kept her kids out of the public eye. Behind the scenes, she made sure they lived a normal life. They became more well-known as the show did. The Kilchers became a show that people all over the country watched every season. Fans liked how they lived, the old tools they used, the hunting trips they took, and the hard winters they had to deal with. They also liked how close Jane and Atz Lee were to each other. People who saw them thought they were strong, loyal, and tough, and that they could handle anything. A lot of people who watched thought they were a great team. There were two tough people who could live off the land and still have fun. A lot of people watched Jane and Atz Lee's relationship on the show. Their story wasn't planned ahead of time for the cameras. It had power because it was real. Fans didn't see the hard work that was needed to keep that life together. Behind the scenes, they were raising two kids, juggling their public and private lives, and keeping their marriage together in the middle of nowhere. There were no breaks or days off. There were cameras rolling while they tried to make it work. They did for a while. They worked together, smiled on screen, and were in every season. But things in real life are never like what you see on TV. Everything looked like it was going to work out at first. The beginning is only one part of this story, like most others. The cracks were just around the corner, which was the next part that no one saw coming. You can't be sure of it. It's more like a process. They didn't catch a bear. There was no doubt that I wanted to make sure that something was in the fridge. Jane and Atz Lee Kilcher put on a strong front for the world for many years. They built, fished, raised their kids, and got through the long winters together, even though life in Alaska was never easy. As things went on behind the scenes, they changed in a way that could not be ignored. At first, it was happening slowly and quietly. In August 2015, there was one of the most important turning points. Atz Lee had a very bad accident at that time. He hurt himself badly when he fell while climbing near Otter Cove in Kachemak Bay, Alaska. He hurt himself when he slipped off a cliff and fell about 40 feet. It was said that he was on a personal trip with a friend at the time and not shooting. Because his injuries were so bad and could have killed him, he had to be flown to the hospital by medevac chopper and treated for a broken arm. There was one broken shoulder, one broken ankle, one broken hip, 2 damaged lungs, and more than a dozen broken ribs. It took a long time, hurt a lot, and was hard for him to get better. Jane Kilcher told his fans that he would need time and patience to fully recover. She also said that the family was grateful for all the love and support they got. Over the next few months, Atz Lee kept his social media fans up to date by posting X-rays of his broken bones and talking about his physical and emotional recovery. He thought back on the event a year later and said, "The accident had a lasting effect on his life, forcing him to slow down and reevaluate everything from his physical abilities to his emotional health and family relationships." Jane was there the whole time. Her job was to take care of him, keep things running smoothly at home, and keep the family together while he healed. Her smile or joke could still be seen on the TV, but behind those scenes was a woman who was going through a hard life by herself. At least on the outside, Atz Lee got better. But something about him had changed. It could have been the stress or fear, or it could have been the way your mind changes when you're close to dying. In any case, the man who came back wasn't the same one Jane had married. He moved farther away, spoke less, and became less engaged. He started to pull away from everything, not just Jane. He worked on his cabin in the woods, away from the main property, more and more. He said it made him feel more put down. It made him feel calm. Jane tried to understand what he meant. She helped him out like a partner should. It was tough not to notice how far away it was getting. She was still raising their daughter at home, running the household, cooking, fishing, and taking care of everything. It was her turn to do it without him there. She likely told herself at first that it was just a phase and moved on. The accident made him feel bad, and he needed some time to get better. Things didn't change much as time went on. Atz Lee would come back for short amounts of time to help with something, and then leave again. Things were also changing for their kids. Etienne, who was Atz Lee's ex-boyfriend's son, was getting ready to leave home. Piper, Jane's daughter, was getting older and wanted to be left alone. She chose to stay away from the camera, and Jane respected that. As the kids got older and Atz Lee moved away, Jane felt more and more alone, like she was living on an island. Fans who had been watching since the first seasons began to notice that something was different. Jane still had work to do, but her spark was going away. She was still doing her part. Online, she didn't talk about Atz Lee very often. She only wrote about fishing trips, nature, and how much she loved her kids. Her marriage posts were missing the love she used to have for them. She told her friends in a short, nice way when they asked about it. On screen, Atz Lee had also begun to change. He didn't seem as present. He was only in a few scenes every season at times. He worked on projects sometimes when he wasn't with his family. He seemed to want to be by himself and make something for himself. It wasn't just about room for Jane. It was about how she felt like she was being left behind slowly. They were there for him in his worst time, through pain, fear, and the months it took to get better. As she worked to keep their family together, she could feel that link slowly breaking down. They were still living together and on the same show, but there was a difference between them now. They weren't building the same life anymore, deep down. Some of their friends and family say they did try to make things work. They talked for a long time, went to therapy, and tried to find a middle ground. It's hard to try when two people have different goals. Atz Lee wanted her own place and time away, while Jane wanted to connect with others and work as a team. The message became more clear every time he went deeper into the woods to work on something by himself. Jane was tired from both work and making everything happen by herself. Even so, she kept coming. But even strong people have limits. For the cameras, the kids, and the people who watched and helped her. Each season made the mental weight bigger. It was still funny to see them together on screen. They still worked together on some tasks, but the mood was different. Something was tense, but it wasn't loud. Quite often, that's how it goes. One big mistake doesn't always cause a marriage to end. They may wear out over time, caused by quiet, being far away, and days when no one says how they feel. From times when one person keeps showing up while the other starts to fade away. Jane picked this life. Before, she quit her job as a nurse and everything she knew to be a part of something bigger. The dream they both had as kids, the family, and the land. She came to understand that she was mostly living that dream by herself over time. It's possible that the crash was what started the whole thing. After that, it took a while for two strangers to become friends in the same place. The marriage was now just a normal thing to do. The love that used to be so strong felt far away now. Jane had not forgotten in her heart. Still, she tried to keep going because she thought things might get better. But they didn't. The truth was clear, even though neither of them had said it out loud yet. It was no longer a relationship. One person stayed because they had to for family, work, or job, and the other was looking for something he couldn't find at home. After coming to terms with it, the next step is to accept it. The point of no return. Jane and Atz Lee Kilcher tried to stay together for years. No matter how quiet it was, how far away they were, or how sad it was that they were apart, they kept going. But in the end, they saw that it wasn't working. The split wasn't a surprise to people who were paying attention by that point. Fans knew something was different. Jane showed up by herself more and more. Atz Lee wasn't seen much. Their smiles looked like they were worn out instead of happy. Once a time when they worked together and were close, now they were just two people living different lives in the same house. The exact moment the choice was made is hard to pin down. It did not start with a huge fight. For years, they had been slowly cutting ties. Jane kept showing up and working hard to take care of her daughter and keep the family together. And Atz Lee, on the other hand, slowly drifted away, going into the woods to be alone and growing emotionally distant. Etienne had already gone to college, and Jane's daughter Piper was starting to grow up and figure out her life. There was less noise in the house, but it was still not a peaceful place. Jane didn't give up because she was still sure they could make their marriage work. Not only for herself, but also for what they had built, she kept things together. She had taken care of their dream, family, relationship, and shared life for years. Love, on the other hand, can't live on memories and hopes alone. The cracks got too big to ignore in the end. The homestead went on, but the personal link was no longer there. When friends noticed and asked, Jane stayed quiet and only gave a vague nod of recognition. Fans who had been following them for a while did not find what she said in 2023 surprising. Her social media post said, "Here we go, Atz Lee is divorcing me. It's very sad, but I can't do anything about it. It hurts that I lost my best friend, but I guess that's just life." Even though the words were simple, they were full of sadness, acceptance, and pain. It was a private pain that was shown to everyone. The end of a relationship that was once a source of strength. She also didn't think twice about defending herself when someone said something bad about her. Some people made fun of her, but she responded like a strong woman who will stand up for her family. In a 2023 Facebook post, she said something that no one expected. At the time, she was getting trolled for getting a black eye by mistake. And her daughter was also getting in trouble. There were no mean words or accusations, only a plea to keep the kids safe and remember what they used to have. Even though she was sad, she talked about being decent and respectful. Jane never let other people see how much pain she was in. She did not yell or blame anyone. She instead focused on getting her daughter better and being brave going forward. It was never about being right. It was about getting through. It wasn't loud when they broke up. The news didn't talk about it because most people knew it was going to happen. Still, it was hard for some fans. Something beautiful had been shown by Jane and Atz Lee. There was love, struggle, and a life shaped by the wild. Their split up felt like a loss for everyone. But Jane carried herself with honor, even though she was in pain. Her search was for strength and ease. She got back to fishing, which was her favorite thing to do. Here and there, her social media posts changed. The happy family pictures were gone. That instead showed her on small boats, leading fishing tours, and living her best life. Fans came together in the comments to show their support for her posts. She responded with a short word of thanks and humility. It's also clear that Jane still cares about him even though they aren't together, because she often tells her fans not to troll or get mad at ads. She had stayed strong longer than most people would have. She put up a fight for her family, and the marriage she used to believe in. She let go with grace when it was clear it was time. Even though they are no longer married, Jane's story is far from over. Stay tuned to see what her life is like now that she is divorced. Moving on. Software things are getting better. Jane Kilcher might have been gone after everything went wrong. It would have been easy for her to avoid attention, keep everyone out, and start over in quiet, but she didn't. She kept moving instead. It wasn't easy to live after the split. If you were married in public, ending the marriage takes a piece of you. Jane had built a life away from the noise of the outside world, so the silence that followed was very hard for her. She knew who she was and had been through worse. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't post much. She took some time to care for herself and her baby. She lived near the beach and fished more, away from the cameras and the questions. She didn't need to say anything. It took some time, but Jane slowly came back, both online and in her heart. Her spark slowly came back. During these times, she talked about small things that made her feel like herself again, not the past or Atz Lee. She told Piper about her fishing trips, her time with her, and her thoughts on life. Her dry sense of humor and strength were still there, but there was also a sense of peace. It had been years of putting her kids, her husband, the farm, and the show ahead of herself. She could think about herself for the first time in a long time. In one post, she said, "I don't need a man. I only need fish, peace, and a few close friends who get it." It was funny and true at the same time. That was Jane always telling the truth with a smile. She started getting back in touch with a part of her life that she had almost forgotten about. She was a strong, smart nurse, friend, mother, and wild Alaskan before she moved to the farm. She could face freezing water and still laugh through the storm.